Hello again. A very warm welcome to the 35th edition of the DogFest Munich. It's an online version this year, DogFest Munich at Home 2020. We are welcoming you all in front of your screens in what time you ever watched this conversation, and you watched, I hope, also the film. My name is Michael Stadler. I'm the presenter, one of the presenters of the DogFest, and we're very happy to have this film in our program, I, Pastafari. It is directed by Mike Arthur. He's a director from the US. It's a production from the US, and we show the film as a German premiere in our section Doc Panorama. I will talk to the director in a second. Just before that, I'd like to point out to our audience award, den Kino Publikumspreis, which is donated by the BR and the Dreisat. And you can vote for this film and also the other films on our website. There will be a button for the audience award for the Publikumspreis. So please do that also for the other films you see. And now I'm very happy to welcome the director of the film I, Pastafari, from the US in Portland. He's here in our video conference, Mike Arthur.
Hello, how you doing, Michael? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I'm all right. How about you? How is it? It's the Corona question, actually, the standard Corona question. How's the situation for you in the US?
Yeah, man. I mean, we just moved back from Europe, actually, a few months ago. We were in the Netherlands. And so right now we are in a basement apartment of my wife's cousin's house because the real estate market is completely shut down. So I'm in a tiny apartment with a big dog, a 2-year-old, and a pregnant wife. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I need some daddy space for sure.
I guess so. Are you allowed to go outside, do some jogging and shopping and stuff like that?
Yeah, but I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I'm kind of in that high risk category. So we're quarantining pretty hard.
Okay. Actually, I was reading that this is your second film, and in a way, or not?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
And I think it said in your bio that your wife moved to the Netherlands and you moved with her, but on the proposition that you can make this film, or how did that project come about?
Yeah, well, basically the first film was an accident. It was just like a YouTube video that took on a life of its own and became a full-length feature. And somehow I sold it, which was a very pleasant surprise. And so that kind of got me hooked on this whole documentary filmmaking thing. And so after that, I actually went back to the corporate world, which is, I used to work at actually Adidas, a German company.
All right.
So I was in corporate retail. And once you get the taste of making your own thing and seeing it become something, it's really tough to go back to the cubicle life. So my wife got an opportunity with her employer to move overseas to Amsterdam. And basically the whole premise was, look, I'll quit my job, but I want to try to make another film. And this is that second film. So I'm really happy that it's getting an audience in Germany. And I hope this is the film that will either make me a filmmaker or not. Because at this point, I'm still an amateur. So if this film works out, then I think I can comfortably convince my wife to let me make a third film.
Oh,
so there's a lot riding on it.
You're on a very good way. I mean, it's actually like learning by doing the film.
Yeah.
You learn
the
tricks of the trade.
Yeah, and I'm sure if your audience watches it and they compare it to Netflix movies that have $1 million budgets, it's definitely not that. It's very much an indie film. And yeah, my teacher was basically YouTube and Google.
Okay, but well then it's really a great film, and I mean it's a very humorous film. You could call it a satire. On the other hand, it's not supposed to be only a fun comedy or kind of a mockumentary, but at the beginning I was really thinking about maybe it could be a mockumentary, but those guys exist, the Pastafaris. How did you come across them? How did you learn about them?
That's what really drew me to the story, was that line between satire and reality, because by definition, satire is a reflection of reality. And when you combine that with this idea of religion, what is a real religion? I don't think anybody, even theologians, can ask that or can answer that question. And so that's what really kind of got me digging deep into this whole Pastafarian thing. I mean, so I live in Portland, Oregon, and that's basically where I'm from. And the creator of Pastafarianism is also from Portland, Oregon. So it was just a coincidence when I first heard about Pastafarianism, 10 years ago or so. It was just kind of in the ethos. I might have saw an article about them, and I didn't really think twice about it. But then going to the Netherlands, I saw an article that basically said that Pastafarianism was successfully recognized as a religion in the Netherlands. So I reached out to the people that, kind of were fighting this fight. And I heard there was a trial where this guy was trying to earn the right to wear his religious headwear and an ID photo, and his state issued ID photo. And you can only do that if you have a religious exception or a religious reason to wear it. And so Pastafarianism, their religious headwear is a spaghetti colander. So, yeah, I mean, how can you not want to dig in more? And so I talked to the guys, and I ended up filming the trial, and I didn't understand a word they were saying because it was all in Dutch, and I don't speak Dutch. But just the visuals of this dude with a spaghetti colander on his head, knowing they were having this really deep conversation about like who decides what a real religion is, it just fascinated me. So that's kind of what started this journey. And that was about 3 years ago, I'd say late 2016, when that Netherlands trial took place.
And did you have like the feeling it's always a little bit tongue in cheek, or, I mean, you really have the feeling they really mean it serious? It's interesting because it's also told in the I think, who says it, that it could be just a practical joke, an elaborate practical joke, but even when you watch the film, you realize it's not that simple.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that, and I think one of the Pastafarians in the film said that, preaching the old-fashioned way doesn't work. So you have to come up these days with a unique way to capture people's attention. We live in this world where, like, Kim Kardashian is one of the famous, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be clickbaitable in order to get eyes, unfortunately. I mean, I think Pastafarians especially really wish that we could just talk about these complex societal issues like religion's impact on society in a academic setting with, a strong debate without people getting defensive or angry, or just ending the conversation by saying something like, well, you just got to have faith, So that's what I loved about Pastafarianism, is that the satire, yeah, it is a satire, and it does use humor to garner attention, you could say. But how is that any different from, garnering attention in any other way? As long as eyes and attention are on the issue at hand, that's their goal, I think. And nowadays, yeah, it's got to be clickbaitable to catch your eyes. There's so much noise and so much distraction that you got to do something unique. And that's why I think Pastafarianism is special. And I think they're tackling an issue that's many times untouchable. Somebody's faith or somebody's religion is a lot of times off the table. And when we see so many of these troubling headlines about whether it's discrimination, hate, anti-science nonsense, which we're dealing with in the US in a severe way now, and it feels like always, these are some of the biggest issues in society that we can't seem to have a rational debate about. And so that's why I think the Pastafarian movement is special, and that's where I think they can make progress where other methods have failed, I hope.
I think then you also had to delve into history. You had to go back into the 1920s to the Scopes trial and the issue of creationism, and the issue of that in the US it was possible in public schools to educate pupils in saying that religion is kind of a science. And I think the rest of the Pastafarians are kind of a counter movement even to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny and it's sad that it's almost the exact same debate we're having today around coronavirus that we were having in 1920. Like, this whole argument that science is just another system of belief. That's one of the most harmful ways of thinking possible. And unfortunately today we're realizing that, especially in the US. In Germany, you guys are fortunate. You have a scientist as a world leader. We do not. And we have to continually try to explain that science is a process, not a belief system. And that's the same argument that happened in 1920s when they tried to teach creationism as in science. It's the same thing that happened in 2005 in the state of Kansas in the US, where they tried to teach intelligent design in science, with the argument being they're both theories, so we should give them equal time in science classes. It's the same thing today that, this person believes this will work and this scientist believes this will work, so let's both give them the opportunity to, it's chaos. So it's one of the most fundamental issues, I think, at the heart of the society today, and it has been for a long time, especially in the US. But the funny thing is that it took me moving to Europe to really, dig in deep. And that's because in the US, a lot of the population it's like, how do I explain it? It's difficult to have that debate because it's a non-starter. We're on two teams where, there's the religious right and the liberal elite is what, they call each other, and we don't listen to each other. So I thought Pastafarianism might be a unique way to kind of trick people into critically thinking for themselves instead of lecturing them. And that's what really got me interested in the film.
Mm-hmm.
In the topic.
I mean, they are kind of the clothes are reminiscent of pirates. Do you actually know when that came about?
Yeah, I mean that was in the open letter to the Kansas School Board, which in the film I explained that's where the Flying Spaghetti Monster started. It was just in the letter, and it took on a life of its own. But the funny thing is that this question, it goes back to this question: what is a real religion? Okay, well, is Pastafarianism a real religion? Okay, do they have millions of followers worldwide? Yes. Do they have a book? Yeah, they have the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Do they have, in this book, are there stories that teach ethical issues? Absolutely. Do they have rituals and cultural traditions? Yes, and dressing as a pirate or wearing a colander on your head is a part of that. So it's hard to say that it's not a religion because it has all the basic foundations that any faith has, except it's just not as old. And then, okay, what's old enough? Scientology is, not that old. The Mormon faith is 200 years old. So where do you draw the line? And so, yeah, I mean, all of these things, the dressing up as pirates, wearing colanders, these are a part of their cultural tradition. And they do them to share an important message to society. So we're kind of seeing the development of a new faith community. And who's to argue in 100 years that this won't be as legitimate as any other religion? Why not?
Yeah, I like also the idea that that there are no more pirates or there are lesser pirates, so that's the reason for global warming. I was wondering maybe it's also the reason for Corona.
It might as well. That's a satire on junk science. You know what I mean? And it's a perfect way to illustrate it, because instead of saying, hey, your idea doesn't pass the scientific method, which will get an immediate, I don't give a shit. Oops, sorry.
Or you can say shit in German, it's okay.
Okay, good. Scheiße. They're instead saying, okay, here's basically what you're doing. Think about that for a second. Just because two things correlate do not mean they cause each other. And that's what the Pastafarian religion is. It's all over in their holy texts and in their rituals. It's all things to teach an important lesson to society in a unique way, in an entertaining way. Which, without that, in today's society, how else do you get these messages across them?
And I mean, it's spread out and kind of worldwide. I think it's in New Zealand, as mentioned in the film. And you went actually to Germany, to the Uckermark, Brandenburg, to the little village. How did you contact that guy, and how was it to film with him?
He was great, man. I mean, he is one of the most interesting guys I met along this journey for sure. We're talking about Bruder Spaghettis. And yeah, in Pastafarianism, there are a few larger figures. Bobby Henderson is the prophet, but he keeps a relatively low profile. I mean, he doesn't do interviews. It's really tough to even find a picture of him. I tried for years to get him involved in this film, and yeah, I mean, he's been helping me along the way, and we've been in contact, but he wouldn't be a part of the film, which was unfortunate. But there are a few big figures. Bruder Spaghettis in Germany is definitely one of the biggest. He created the first, well, I guess your audience just watched the film, so he created the first physical Pastafarian church. There's also Nico Alm in Austria, who's a parliament member. He was the guy to first get the colander ID. And so, you know, right after starting the film, these are the guys that I wanted to get in the film. But the problem is a stranger from America, you know, cold emailing you, telling you about this film idea, and I have no resume, you know, to back up I don't have any funders, or, you know, there's no big production company behind me. So they very much took a risk on me. But it definitely paid off, I think. I mean, the footage with Bruder Spaghettis, you know, performing his noodle mass in his church it's amazing. And all of the rituals that he's created as a part of this noodle mass all have a message behind them. So, you know, at the end of the film, I kind of explain that, in a way, Pastafarianism is asking religion to evolve in a way by being an evolved religion. And by that, I mean, I think Mika said it best. She says, you know, I wear a colander on my head because it tells me to separate the good stuff from the bad stuff. And the same can be applied with religion. You know, there's some good parts of religion. There's the community aspect, the charity aspect, the cultural traditions. There's no reason we should abandon those. But we must abandon the anti-science, the discrimination, the hate, the anti-vaccine, all the nonsense that's just outdated beliefs that have only survived because of their disdain for science. So yeah, in that way, Pastafarianism is really an evolved religion, I think.
Maybe it's a better religion than all the others. You show the.
I would argue that, but
yeah. I mean, in the end, in regards of the dramaturgy of the film, I guess you knew that they would lose all their battles in court. So
I didn't.
No, you thought that?
No, I didn't. No, because I felt that they gave a pretty strong argument. I mean, obviously, I'm hearing this through a translator, basically, but I do not think that it is even possible. I mean, the foundation of the trial was, is it a real religion? And if it is, then they should get these rights. If it isn't, then they shouldn't get these rights or these privileges. But the main question is, why does whether I believe in Allah or Thor or Poseidon or the flying spaghetti monster impact my rights? Why is that a thing in 2020? And the only answer is, it's because it's always been that way. It's always been in law. And because these religious privileges give religious groups more power than non-religious people, they've maintained this edge. That's why we see a lot of, especially in the US, a lot of this anti-science nonsense from the highest levels of government. Is because of this disparity between political power due to religious privilege. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but
I think so. Yeah, in a way.
Okay.
I mean, in the end, it's kind of a downer. You would have liked to see them triumphing, but
yeah,
like,
I don't know.
It's like that.
But I think, honestly, I don't know. I think the fact that they lost is more appropriate, because as a society, we seem to not be making any progress. We seem to still question science and question experts, and so I think it would have been weird if they would have been triumphant. And maybe it would have made for a better movie ending or so, but it wouldn't be an accurate reflection of society. The reality is that the struggle to get most of society to worship science as they worship their gods is still going on strong. And so I don't know. I think I agree with you. I wanted them to win, but that they didn't is a more accurate reflection of society.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Actually, you financed the film all on your own? It's like a guerrilla action to do it, or you didn't?
Yeah, I mean, I did crowdfunding campaigns. So really, I think about half of the film is financed by Pastafarians. Just because there is no film like this. There's no other Pastafarian film, and I was tired of them just getting a headline because I knew there was so much more to it. And so I thought it deserved a film. So yeah, I did a crowdfunding campaign, and it was half financed by that, and the other half was pretty much financed by my savings account.
I
that's
hope you
that's
have
the
the
life of an
money
indie
already
filmmaker, man.
back. Did you already have it back? You had already the film at other festivals? No.
Oh, yeah, the film's been at some other festivals, and we did get a distribution agreement. So I'll be announcing something pretty soon. So it should be available in Europe in May, June, and in the US around July.
Okay.
So that in itself is a big step for a small film like this. So yeah, I mean, it has to become financially viable in order for me to make a third film, but I'll settle for just the Message of Pastafarian getting a large audience. I mean, that
Okay.
was the
Well,
motive. I didn't get into this because I thought I was going to make any money, because I probably won't. But if I can bring a little more rationality in the world, then it's good enough for me.
well, we're very happy that we have that film on our festival, online festival, and I think we all enjoy it very much. So thank you for that we could have it on this festival. Actually, last question: what
Yeah.
denomination? Which religion do you have? What kind of a believer are
Uh,
you?
yeah. I mean, I guess I'm a Pastafarian in the sense that it is not required to literally believe in the flying spaghetti monster to be a member. Um, I'm an atheist, but atheism really doesn't give you any way to live your life, you know? I'm a humanist, I guess I would say, which isn't really a religious group, but it just means that I believe, humans can solve human issues, and we don't need to rely on a god or anything like that. So if that answers your question.
Actually,
A little
your
vague.
film converted me. Just a bit vague.
Ramen.
Ramen, thank you very much for being
Yeah.
here,
All right. Thanks for
for being
having
at
me,
our
and thanks for
festival with
screening
your
the film.
film.
All
Bye,
right. Good talking
Mike.
to you, Michael. Bye-bye.
And this film actually can also win an audience award at our festival. So
I hope so.
yeah, so people vote for that film.
Please.